For more now, we turn to Robert Simcox of the Heritage Foundation. He is a terrorism and national security analyst. So, Robin, ISIS is saying that one of its members carried out this attack. What do you make of that claim?
Well, it seemed to be they were the group that obviously there was a lot of suspicion towards. They're the group that's attacked Europe numerous times in recent years, and they're the group that's under a lot of pressure in Syria and Iraq from coalition forces trying to expel them from the territory they control there. So, of course, we need to wait and see whether there's any validity to this claim. At the moment, ISIS haven't really offered the specifics that prove conclusively that it was them that ordered this operation, but the fact that they've claimed credit and done so relatively quickly makes me think that there is probably something to this. ISIS don't tend to make lots of claims for attacks they haven't carried out. So I think at the moment all arrows are pointing towards that particular group.
Robin, what do we know about suspected jihadist groups in the UK? Are there specific terror cells that officials have been watching? And if so, if this individual turns out to have been on some watch list, what would it take for them to roll somebody up like that or not?
Well, the problem here is it's a numbers game. There's around 3,000 terrorist suspects believed in the UK that the security services want to keep an eye on, are concerned about. You also have around 850 Brits that went to travel to Syria to take part in the fighting there, to take part in that conflict. And of course, there's no way that the UK security services, as good as they are, and they are actually very good in the context of European security agencies especially, there's no way they can have the resources to be able to track the amount of people they're concerned about. So all the time it's a constant assessment of who they think is most likely to go operational, who is the closest to carrying out some kind of attack, who do we follow today, who do we prioritize this week. And so it's not really an exact science, and then you end up ultimately having to accept the fact that there's going to be the wrong call made every now and again, and the person that was on the periphery may actually be the person that's going operational, and perhaps that's what happened in Manchester yesterday.
Robin, I'm also curious, look, in Europe, specifically in Belgium, we know that there are a number of people who have gone abroad, in other words, to Syria, to fight for the Islamic State, have returned. And many of them have been European-born. In this climate where many of the world's leaders talk about the refugee problem, here in the United States, the President of the United States wanted to implement a ban that would specifically target Muslims before he sort of dialed that back a bit. But if this suspect turns out to have been British-born, are the individual countries that are seeking to fix this problem targeting the wrong, in other words, are targeting refugees as opposed to looking inward?
Well, there's definitely a homegrown problem. There's no doubt about that. There was a homegrown problem not just in the UK but in European countries more widely way before the refugee crisis. Around 3/4 of all the individuals who are connected, get convicted for Islamist-related offences in the UK are British. So there's no doubt there's a homegrown radicalisation problem. I think you have to say that the refugee crisis and the way that ISIS has been able to infiltrate those flows, and there's a lot of evidence now that they have, a number of plots in Germany, as well as, of course, the Paris November 2015 attacks where they smuggled fighters in with refugee flows from Syria. It's just an extra component to the problem. Even without the refugee flow issue, you would have a major radicalisation problem in Europe. The ability of ISIS to infiltrate that refugee flow, post-2015 especially, just adds an extra concerning component to it.
Let's just go back to this particular attack, Robin. Can we talk a little bit about the venue? We're talking about 20,000 people, an American pop star. We know that her fans are often young and female. You know, what do you read into that? Well,
it's just, I suppose you should never lose the ability to be astounded at the barbarity and the willingness to kill that groups like ISIS have, that they possess. But I think this is obviously an especially striking choice of target. As you say, this was overwhelmingly young girls going to this concert. I mean, the claim of responsibility that ISIS has put out, saying that they struck against crusaders in the UK. I mean, the idea that these young people going to this concert are somehow crusaders in the campaign against ISIS, I think is just extraordinary. But look, this is a group that beheads people, that puts people in cages and burns them alive, that has been willing to do all sorts of unbelievably vicious and heinous things in recent years. So we shouldn't be surprised that they would choose to target a group of people as vulnerable and defenseless as this.
Right. Why try to understand the logic, right?
No, there simply
any.
is no logic whatsoever. Robin Simcox with Heritage Foundation. Thank you, Robin. We appreciate it.
Thank you.